Okay guys, today I'm going to be showing you this short video of how I built my floating dock. I've got it on fast motion. If you couldn't tell, I don't actually work this fast. But what you did see me just do was I cut a 4x4 post just to screw into the corners. And the entire rest of this build is made from 10-foot 2x6s. It's all treated lumber. And if you build it with this design, there's no more cuts that'll need to be made. I don't need the saw anymore. Just a lot of screws and some little wood brackets and those barrels. The barrels you can buy off of Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes they'll have ads in newspapers and magazines. Most construction sites receive certain chemicals in barrels, and then when they're done with them, they try to sell them, or sometimes they just give them away. I think I paid $5 for each of these barrels. So the barrels cost me 30 bucks. It's relatively cheap. One thing to note is there was a very harmful chemical in this barrel that would not do good things for my pond, so I did wash them out and seal them very well. That's kind of a crucial part of the process unless you want to purchase food grade barrels, which those are slightly more expensive. That's obviously a better route to go, but if you're trying to do, this isn't an entire budget build, but I was trying to build it relatively inexpensive. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm building a place to mount the barrels. And what I purchased to mount my barrels is a stuff called, it's galvanized hanger iron is actually what it's called. It's a plumber's tool. You can find it at any hardware store in the plumbing section. It's really cheap stuff, and they sell it in like 50-foot rolls. So the 50-foot roll that I purchased for this was probably enough to do at least a whole other dock, if not a third one. It may be a 100-foot roll, I'm not sure. In retrospect right here, I wish I had taken the time to put a couple of boards on what would have been the top, which is actually the underside of what you're looking at there, just to hold the barrels properly in place and give proper spacing. I elected not to because I assumed my ground was probably level enough to take care of that for me, which it was not. But more importantly, I was trying to keep the weight down while I was building it, because obviously you can see I'm building it by myself. If you have help, obviously you don't have this issue, but I was trying to keep it lightweight enough where I can manhandle it without having to call somebody over to help me flip it and put it in the water and that kind of thing. This total build probably only took a little over 2 hours. It took longer to run to the hardware store and get lumber and supplies and come back than it did to actually build it, because I had to take a couple of trips, and even by the end of it, because of the time that I was building this thing, the lumber was starting to become a shortage. They still had lumber, but I kind of had to pick through it. But it took a lot longer to get the supplies and get them down to where I was working than it actually took to put this together. So it's a relatively quick process. All right, getting ready to put the little finishing touches on it before I put it in the water. I'm not going to deck it until it's in the water, because it's going to make it just that much heavier to get in the water. But for the time, I just took the eyes in here so I can tie it off while it's just sitting there, so I'm not floating around the lake trying to do that. A couple things I learned is, one, hardware store is almost out of treated lumber. I got what they had. I might be a few boards short, which means I'll have to go back, but for the most part I got about everything I needed. But you know, when there's not much left, you can't go through and pick the good boards, so I got kind of left with a little bit of crap, but it should be fine for a floating dock. We're just going to be fishing off of it. But this morning it was 47 degrees, and my barrels had kind of deflated a little bit. The air in them was too cold, and my barrels are small. Well, when I came back from the store, they had been sitting in the sun, and I had strapped them down, and then they swole up when they got hot. So I had to loosen the straps back up to get them to seat right, because they were sticking up too much and they were bolting the boards out and everything. So it's ideal that you fill these while it's cold so that they never contract. But I had already filled them and sealed them back in the summer, and now it's starting to get cool, so I kind of had to deal with that today. Today it warmed up, and so they blew back up for the moment. They'll probably go back down, but I got my straps tight and the boards down on top, so they should be solid. I don't know yet. I'm going to try to just push it into the water from here, but there's a pretty good drop, so it's probably going to be kind of funny. But we'll just see how that goes. Hopefully it won't shred the rest of the deck up here, but stay with me and we'll see what happens. Not too bad. Broke one of my boards. So let me show you what I did. So I had these boards laid there to kind of halfway act as a ramp. I didn't have enough of it out in the water in the back part. Got on top of this and prevented it from going forward, and it just snapped that. So now I'm even one more board short. That's okay, I'm sure they'll restock. But it worked. It is in the water. This is the lumber that I have left. I'm going to try to deck out what I can. I'll probably be, I don't know, maybe 2 boards short in the middle there, but I'll go back and get some more wood later. But you can see it floats pretty good. Pretty sure I can hop on and walk. So it's pretty solid. It's wobbly because this barrel's actually on dirt and those are buoyant, so It seems like it did pretty good. Check and check. I'll show you a finished picture in a minute. Well, I got it finished, but I'm 2 boards short. I'll have to wait till they restock the hardware store and go and get them. So it looks pretty good. Works great. Now I just need a trolling motor. Alright guys, just a quick follow-up on the floating dock. Since I built this, I did a couple of things. One, I put a single coat of stain on. You're probably gonna need another one, but just to keep it protected from the sun, because it gets 0 shade being out on the water. So to keep it to last as long as it can possibly last, I put a semi-solid stain. It looks like paint, but it's a stain. But I did get the other 2 boards put on, and I did mount a trolling motor. And you can see I made a very simple trolling motor mount just out of some leftover lumber, some 2x6s and a 2x4, and then just drilled a hole through there. Basically you just pop this board off, slide your trolling motor in, screw it back down, put this on, bolt it down, and get you a battery. And so you can see, we'll see just how fast it will go. You can see it puts out a pretty good weight just with this 50-pound thrust Minn Kota. I mean, I can get around the lake pretty easily. Makes fishing out here a lot easier, and the work that I do on the pond, it makes it easier too. I do keep a paddle on here just in case the battery goes dead or something like that. I'm not stuck. But also put, to tie up the boat, I put these bungee straps with carabiners. That way I can just pull up to the dock and lock it down real quick. But you can see, works pretty good. Done and done. See you next time.